You're listening to 15 Minutes, where we feature community leaders sharing what the rest of us should know but likely don't.
Hi, Chad Franzen here, one of the hosts of Share Your Voice, where we talk with top-notch law firms and lawyers about what it takes to grow a successful law practice. This episode is brought to you by Gladiator Law Marketing, delivering tailor-made services to help you accomplish your objectives and maximize your growth potential. To have a successful marketing campaign and make sure you're getting the best ROI, your firm needs to have a better website and better content. Gladiator Law Marketing uses artificial intelligence, machine learning, and decades of experience to outperform the competition. To learn more, go to gladiatorlawmarketing.com, where you can schedule a free marketing consultation. My guest today is Seth Morris, a co-founder of Liberty Law Group and a licensed attorney in both state and federal courts in Nebraska since 2015. With a background in agriculture and construction, Seth learned the values of hard work, honesty, and collaboration early on. He has represented over 850 clients in complex criminal and civil cases, taking 58 cases to trial. Noteworthy achievements include securing acquittals in trials ranging from murder charges to federal felonies, as well as significant plaintiff settlements. Seth's dedication to his clients has earned him recognition as a Great Plains Rising Star, awarded to only 2.5% of attorneys. Outside of his legal career, Seth enjoys pursuits such as hunting, fishing, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and spending time with his family. Hey, Seth, great to have you today. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Did I get everything right in that intro?
Yeah, it's weird, just hearing that read back to you. I just think of myself as just, a simple man from rural Nebraska. And it's cool to, to like when you work through that and see that, you've been able to accomplish things with a team and with your clients and get some big wins.
As I mentioned, you kind of had you have a little bit of a background in agriculture and construction. Tell me about some of your jobs that you had prior to entering into the legal profession.
Yeah, so my first jobs were all just whatever work I could get on the local farms around me. Those were the first jobs that I had. So I wouldn't say that I lived on a farm, but if you're listening to this and you're not from Nebraska, my nearest neighbor was a half mile or a mile away. You would say, yeah, you definitely grew up on a farm, right? So we had, chickens. We'd get pigs in the summer. Working in hog confinements, baling hay, working in cornfields, anything that I could get my hands on to make some money, I was down to do. And so, that I think it is a great thing for me because it taught me the value of hard work. I remember in law school, people would be complaining about studying for this or that. And it's like, well, this is a heck of a lot better. Like we were studying for the bar in the summer, for instance, it's the middle of June and July. People are complaining. And I'm like, this is a heck of a lot better than being on a roof that's 120 degrees, shingling, for $8 an hour. And so it helps give you perspective to how blessed I am to be an attorney and in the position that I am.
So what kind of motivated you to pursue, law is not an easy career to pursue. What motivated you to pursue that, especially after your prior background?
Yeah. So I was in college. I was majoring in business. And so I kind of always had an interest in law. It seemed like one of those things that was kind of unattainable, right? I didn't know a lawyer. I didn't come from a family of lawyers. It seemed kind of like almost too lofty. But as I got into this internship, I didn't like working at that business. At the time, I didn't realize it was a culture problem. In that business, I thought that was working for any business. And so I'm like, well, I'm not just going to do this for the rest of my life. I'm going to take the LSAT and see what happens. Did pretty well, got into Nebraska law, got my couple more years of student football tickets, and the rest is history. So it wasn't some grand plan where I was 4 years old and wanted to be a lawyer. I just didn't like the path that I was on. And I said, well, I've always had an interest, started studying, got in, and I really found it really interesting. Just to study and get through because there's just so many areas of gray. Nothing is black and white. And it just really one of those things where I'm a naturally very curious person. And so it kind of suits my needs.
So take me through kind of your, you went to law school. Tell me how you've kind of progressed from there.
Yeah. So I went to law school at the University of Nebraska. While I was there, I think at the time, like I look back and all of these little decisions I didn't know were significant are really have been dividends and helped me in my practice. Now, but I was taking any job that would pay me money, right? That's been a theme of my life. And so, I worked for a lot of different firms. I worked with attorneys that are now judges. And so through this experience, I mean, I've done, through law school in the first few years, I was doing anything from adoptions to wills to business stuff to insurance defense, criminal defense. I did all of these different things, and it helped me really find what I like to do and really tailor my practice to what is my skill set.
Have you learned more? Did you learn more in law school or since law school?
Obviously since law school, right? You learn just enough to say, yes, this is the rule. And then it's actually, how do you implement that? How do you be an effective advocate for your clients? How do you get good results? All of that you don't learn, right? Even in your, I took some litigation prep type classes while I was there. And yeah, these are the discovery rules, but really getting into, how do we tailor this discovery for, because they can't prepare you for all the wild stuff that happens in the real world.
Sure.
Just so many crazy things can happen, and you're always constantly in new situations with new people. And so you're always learning on the fly. And I think it's a huge advantage to be flexible and just be a naturally curious person and wanting to understand, why does this work this way? How does this work? What do I need to get an understanding of in this case to help my client?
Take me back to your first experience as a trial attorney, and kind of like what were you feeling? Were you intimidated by going up against a maybe a more experienced or more seasoned attorney, talking in front of a judge for the first time? Were you nervous? How were you feeling, and how did you feel after it was over?
So my first hearing, I'll never forget. I was a senior certified law student, where in Nebraska, that means you can do with supervision, you can be there and participate. It was a motion to continue, and I've never been more prepared for anything in my life, right? I had like a whole page of dialogue on why this motion to continue should be granted. And the judge just looked at me and was like, yeah, all we needed was, this case is a month old, continue it. And so, I've always put myself out there, but, my first trial was a felony trial. At that point, I remember people after the fact saying, your first trial was a felony, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I guess at that point, it was almost ignorance is bliss. I just went in there. I'm like, hey, I have this route. Here's how I think I can win this case. And I tried it. It's obviously intimidating, very nerve wracking. But the key that I've found is, if you put in the work and you're more prepared for the other side, you're always going to put your client in the best position. So I just refuse to let myself be outworked by the other side, and explore every possible angle that we can to get our clients a good outcome.
Since that time, have you had a particular case or situation, a client or something like that has had kind of a profound impact on you, whether it was successful or not?
Probably the most impactful moment. I mean, it's always great when you hear not guilty. You get to walk out of there with your client. But the most impactful, had a client, he was facing 20 to life. Right before the trial, they offered him a sentence of 15 to 20, and he was this close to taking it, right? Because he knew if he was convicted on this, based on the allegations, he was probably going to jail for life. And I said, look, I'm confident we're going to win this. We do. And through the process, because that's, we started, COVID happened, so the trials kept getting continued because either a juror or whatever. I mean, so he hadn't seen his kids for this for over a year and a half. And so I got to be there after he's found not guilty. The no contact order is released, and I get to see his kids swarm him outside of the courthouse and give him that big hug. And that, I'll never forget that moment, because it felt so great that I was able to be just a small part of reuniting that family and helping him just take the 1,000-pound anchor off of his back.
Nice. Very nice. Hey, is there anything that would you say kind of sets you apart or makes you different from other attorneys?
Yeah, I think, one of the advantages of having been and raised in rural Nebraska and done all of these jobs and, having gone to law school is I'm able to relate with, I believe, anybody in Nebraska, and able to break things down. I kind of lean into my strength of just being an everyday Nebraskan And I'm able to break a case down that can be very complex so anybody can understand it. Like we're just sitting there having a cup of coffee or having a beer, and we're just discussing what's going on here. And I think that's a real big strength of mine is I don't try to be something I'm not. I don't try to use fancy words. I don't try to talk too much. I try to really focus in on what moves the needle in this case. Get rid of all of the white noise. Get rid of all the white noise, and we're going to focus on these issues. So that way, when I talk, the jury listens, right? Because they're only going to hear so much of what you say. And if you say a lot of nonsense, they don't want to listen. And so one of my favorite things to do is, the state calls some witness who doesn't matter, right? And they cross-examine that, or they direct exam for an hour. And I say, no questions for this witness. They get off the stand, and then you can just see to the jury, they're like, okay, that person doesn't matter. Let's disregard everything that just happened, and let's move on to the next thing. And so I like to just keep it simple, focus on what really matters, keep how I talk and how I interact with witnesses and everything at a normal conversational level. Because on any jury panel, you're going to have a doctor, you're going to have a very blue-collar person that might only have a high school education. So if I'm over here trying to show off how smart I am and how many Latin words I learned in law school, I can easily lose people.
How important is that kind of, I guess, for lack of a better word, relationship with a jury? Is it a huge deal? I mean, is that something you really concentrate on?
I concentrate on, so when I'm starting voir dire, the process of my first interaction with the jury is I want to let them know I'm not going to waste their time. I focus issues that are going to matter, and I set up those hypotheticals so that way I'm foreshadowing what's going to come. Essentially, what I'm looking to do is create a tribe out of that jury, whether it be 6 or 12 people, and I'm the leader of that tribe. And so I want them to say like, oh, yeah, remember back to voir dire when we talked about this issue that was going to come up, he was exactly right on. And so that way they relate to me. They see that I'm not trying to pull the wool over their eyes. I'll get out in front of bad issues. I'll address, strengths and weaknesses right out of the gate and just be very genuine. And so, that's part of it. But then it's also jurors are watching you when you least expect it. So it's how do you interact with your client? How do you interact with court staff? How do you carry yourself? Right. And so how do you treat those around you? And that way it just, I believe, lends credibility, because I can't try to be this everyman and then just be an a-hole to the bailiff or be rude to my client or be a jerk to the prosecutor. That just doesn't work. So you just have to be consistent about who you are.
Tell me about Liberty Law Group. I know you're a co-founder. Tell me how long you guys have been doing your thing and how that kind of came about.
Yeah, so it started in August of 2023. So we're coming up on 6 months now. And so there's 4 of us now, 2 in Lincoln, 2 in Omaha. And we all worked at Berry Law Firm in Nebraska before. And I guess how it came about, if you want me to really wind back. So John Berry's the founder there. I have all the respect in the world for John. I've been the biggest professional influence on me in my career by far. So I was hired there in 2017. I'm eating lunch with him and we're talking about, okay, this is your first year here. What are the next 5 or 10? What are my goals? And at that time I told him I wanted to be a partner. I wanted to get on that partnership track. And he was very clear with me from the start that that's just not how their business operated. And that wasn't a plan now or in the future. And so then at that point, the clock started ticking in the back of my head that sometime in the 5 to 10 years, I'm going to branch out. And so essentially I hit, kind of the peak I could there. I felt that I had, from an experience standpoint, the skills to do it. I was in a financial position to, if we don't make any money for several months, I can eat that. And so it just lined up from an experience standpoint. I was able to, talk with other experienced attorneys that were kind of in the same position. They wanted that ownership stake to grow in that partner role, and they were all kind of stuck in the same position. And so we were able to launch, and it's been going really well. They're all really talented attorneys. I'm very lucky to have them as my business partners because not only are they good attorneys, but they understand that this is a business. And that's what a lot of attorneys just don't get. They think automatically people are going to hear how great I am and the money's just going to start flowing in and it's never going to stop. But you do have to worry about your bill or your business before your billables and take care of those.
Yeah, what's the biggest difference? I know, most attorneys that I speak with, I knew everything that I could know about law, but then I didn't realize there was like this whole other side of it once I opened my own firm. Is there anything that's kind of been, or what's your learning experience kind of been in that regard?
So I would say that the biggest change is having to take care of all these little things that just magically happen when you're at a good firm. There's no IT support. When we launched, it's just bare bones, no staff. We're figuring out what systems are we going to use? What's the IT going to look like? What is marketing going to look like? And so it's one of those where if you look at it if you were to put it all in one pile, it just becomes overwhelming. But when, we're able to break it down, hey, Matt Knight, for instance, has been great about helping us implement Clio. And so we're working through that process. And then, with business and marketing, I've kind of taken over the role of, hey, let's break down, here's what we're spending, here are other options for us, all of these different things. So we're kind of wearing different hats and letting people who have strengths in those areas kind of take that. Because for me to implement a system, it's not going to be great. Like, I'm just not a systems and processes guy. It's not my strength. But I do love sitting down with marketing people, talking about ideas, seeing how we can make this work and help the brand grow.
How would you, what advice would you give to aspiring lawyers, especially those looking to practice in criminal law?
So my advice would be, so are we talking maybe someone that's in like college, like that kind of
yeah,
level?
maybe somebody who's maybe on the verge of graduating law school, but isn't sure which kind of road to go down. In terms of.
Yeah. So if you're in law school, my advice would be, and I've told this to people, so I'm not making it up for the podcast. Take classes that you may not find interesting because you may like it, right? On the face level, you may not think I have any interest in contracts or bankruptcy or whatever, but you may love it. But also just take different jobs. Because I see a lot of, what happened with my friends. They're a 1L, they get a job, and they just ride that out till their 3L year. And now all they've done is just this much, right? They're just 1 inch deep into the wide practice of law. So take a job with, especially if you're in criminal, take a job with the public defender's office. They're always looking for clerks. Try to clerk for a firm that does criminal. Like Nebraska has a program, one of their clinics, where you actually prosecute misdemeanor level cases. Get those things to actually get your feet wet, because there's a big difference between what things look like on paper and the practice of it. And if you would have told me, 10, 15 years ago, before I had attended law school, that I would find criminal defense to be, what I really love to do and personal injury, I'd have been like, nah, I want to do, business, corporate law, something like that. That would have been my answer. Or I would have been a prosecutor versus being on the side that I am. And I just, through gaining experience, it's been a tremendous asset.
What is it about doing that specifically that you enjoy so much?
So with criminal defense, there's no bigger stakes, right? Because if you're doing, say, mergers and acquisitions, yeah, money matters, but you can always make more money. And, the stakes are so high in criminal because I can't give people their time back from life behind bars. And so it's exhilarating when you get in there and you fight and you get that win. And so there's no greater feeling that I've experienced as an attorney of walking out of a courtroom and giving somebody, hey, here's your life back. And that's what I love about criminal law, and the fact that the odds are so stacked against you, right? The city of Lincoln, their police budget is around $70 million. The city of Omaha, their police budget, I think, is $150 million. And so all the resources, the prosecutors, there's so many prosecutors in that office. They have so many cops. If the local cops can't do it, they have the state patrol. They can talk to the DEA, the FBI. They have all the resources. And so a lot of times I'm dealing with someone who's got very limited to no resources. And so working through that, and it's truly a David versus Goliath, and taking on government overreach is something that I love that battle, because the odds are so stacked against you, just from the jump.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Hey, as I mentioned in your intro, you have experience. You do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Has that influenced your professional life at all?
So the reason I got into jiu-jitsu was because of my professional life. So I was in a jail cell one time, and so visit's not going well. Guy is not happy with the news I'm delivering to him. And I'm literally, at this point, I'm just reading him his charges. That's it. He's losing his mind. He's threatening to, beat me up, all of these things. We diffuse that situation. I just cut the visit short, get out of there. A year later, I see that person was involved in a very violent crime. And I'm like, I have little to no actual self-defense skills. So I don't need to be, I don't need to be Conor McGregor. I don't need to be that. A little jujitsu, get him in a pull guard, get him in a little collar choke or something, and wait for the cavalry to arrive. That's the reason I started that. Was, I'm just in a position where sometimes there's going to be nobody, and I'm dealing with sometimes mentally unwell or violent people.
Sure. Hey, I have one more question for you, but first tell me how people can find out more information about Liberty Law Group.
Yeah, so our website is libertylawnebraska.com. That's the first place to start. You can also follow us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, all of the different socials. We're out there.
Last question for you. How do you kind of balance your, all of your personal interests, your hobbies, hunting, jiu-jitsu, things like that, your family, with your professional life?
So it just starts with discipline. And so I get up every morning about 4:15 or 4:20, get a workout in, come back, get the kids to daycare. And then it's just, you can show, how somebody who truly cares about something by where they dedicate their time. And so as far as if I'm serious about hunting is a passion of mine, you just have to make it happen. And so it's just got to be disciplined about how you schedule things versus just letting life happen to you.
What's your biggest moment as a hunter?
Oh, man. So, there's different levels to it. And a lot of times, the things that you remember the most about hunts don't really have anything to do with, shooting anything, just being out there. It's just different things that you see. Like one time, it was real early light, and, I saw an owl try to steal one of my decoys. I've had fish try to swallow my decoys. Like, you just have, because you go out there, 4:30 in the morning, and you're just kind of sneaking up on nature and then just participating in everything waking up. And so a lot of it is just the experience of unplugging, getting out there, and just kind of being away from the world for a few hours, turning the phone off, and just focus on, trying to call in these ducks or this turkey, or wait for that big buck to come around. And so a lot of it is just, it's more the process than the final result.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. Hey, Seth, it's been great to talk to you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time and all of your thoughts, your stories.
All right. Thank you so much.
So long, everybody.
Thanks for listening to 15 Minutes. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.